Morning. Tonight's program. This is a reminder that this episode will address various topics related to addiction, but will definitely be centered around multiple sclerosis. These may be sensitive to some of our viewers. Viewer discretion, as always, is advised. We remind you to please consult your doctor, your mental health professional, your outreach group, your sponsor, or specialist before adopting any change to your dietary, physical, and/or mental health regime. If you're looking for options with respect to mental health, contact SAMHSA, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, at 1-800-662-HELP. That's 1-800-662-4357. The service is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and is a confidential free information service for individuals and family members facing such stressors. Importantly, if you're feeling suicidal crisis or emotional distress and need to be put in touch with the Crisis Center, call the Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK. It's 1-800-273-8255. Or go to suicidepreventionlifeline.org. You can also text the word HOME to 741-741. Those resources are also available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And then, something that has been paramount in my mind and my heart over the last 13 months, and quite frankly the last 11 years, is that of multiple sclerosis and demyelination. And quite frankly, this is the topic of tonight's show, but we might as well talk about this right now. Multiple sclerosis is comprised of unpredictable and often disabling flare-ups of the central nervous system. Such flare-ups disrupt the flow of information within the brain and between the brain and the body. The National MS Society is the largest private funder of MS researchers in the world, investing more than $1 billion to date. MS stops people from moving, but the National MS Society exists to make sure that MS doesn't. To contact the National MS Society, please call 1-800-344-4867. Once again, 1-800-344-4867. Or go to their website at nationalmssociety.org. And we will make mention of this a couple of times in tonight's episode, but I'll start with this right now. As I did last year, I'll be taking part in the Walk MS 2022 in Media, Pennsylvania on April 23rd. We are raising money for this and the National MS Society through a Venture to a Cure's fundraising page at rebrand.ly/a venture to a cure. Once again, rebrand.ly/a venture to a cure. Thank you for all of you who have donated money to this amazing organization, or even have gone to the National MS Society to learn more about multiple sclerosis and demyelination. It touches me and over the 1 million people in this country who have multiple sclerosis in so many ways, and we appreciate all of you. And on that, let's begin. Tonight, we're going to revisit the use of this poll and the whole story with me and multiple sclerosis as I get ready for the MS Walk in Media, Pennsylvania in April. This is the Venture Forward. Good evening once again, or good morning, or good afternoon, and welcome to the Venture Forward. I am John Venturini, a recovering addict of alcoholism, compulsive gambling, and overeating obesity, and it is an honor and pleasure to see all of you tonight on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. Where have we heard this story before? We've talked about multiple sclerosis in episodes past, especially in the beginning of last year, when the symptoms were starting to really flare up, when I was going through an exacerbation, and it was very obvious that I was going through what would be multiple sclerosis. We're going to go through that story once again tonight, but in the guise of, well, I'm actually taking part in a walk, and the walk is very important for multiple reasons. One, to raise as much money as we can for the National MS Society, without question. But I think the other piece of this is that I'm physically able to go on walks. I was more than overjoyed in the fact that I was able to walk a considerable distance last year at Stroud Preserve for the virtual MS walk. And now to be actually part of a walk this year with other walkers that are trying to raise money for the National MS Society is an honor. It really is. And that's part of the story for sure. More the reason why we had a little bit of a scheduling flip, and we'll talk about that towards the end of tonight's show as well. But before we get started with the story at hand, let's see who wins the door prize tonight on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. And that would go to Rich Vibes, who says howdy over on YouTube. Rich Vibes, the host of an incredibly great program over on Mixcloud on Sunday afternoons at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. Sunday Night Live. He's an incredible DJ and an incredible friend. I definitely say you should go out and listen to his work. He is fantastic. Who else is here? Jamie Rose on YouTube, who says, hi, cool peoples. I say, hi, cool Jamie Rose. How are you? Hope you're doing well this evening. We also have Austin on YouTube, who says, hey, JV, and everyone else on chat. Austin, honor and pleasure to see you this evening, as always. We also have Awesome Wood Things over on YouTube. That would be no other than Matt Haas, co-host of VF Talks on Friday nights at 6:30 Eastern. Matt, good to see you this evening. And we have... Apparently we're making thumbnails. Austin is saying I'm making thumbnails right now. So there is a whole thumbnail project going on, and lots of art going on, and thumbnails and icons and all that stuff. Definitely the artistic people are working at it this evening, and it's an honor to see all of you this evening, for sure. Let's talk about MS. Let's talk about my story with MS, but then moreover, what is up for the next month or so, as far as the walk, as far as treatment, as far as what have you. So we talked about multiple sclerosis before, but come this time of year, given the fact that the infusion is a month from now, which I have to do the infusion twice a year, also given the fact that there is the ongoing 17 MRI work, it's worth talking about this in light of the walk that is being held in April. So just another call to action on this. Again, we're raising money for the National MS Society at rebrand.ly/adventure to a cure. An incredible organization. You get a chance to go to that site that will bring you over to the event page for the Walk MS in media at that site, rebrand.ly/adventure to a cure. And a lot of the information that we're going to talk about tonight is through the National MS Society, whose website is nationalmssociety.org. An incredible organization, as we talked in the disclaimer at the start of the show, raising more than $1 billion. A large collective of MS researchers. So they're definitely doing a lot for this neurological disorder, not only with demyelination, but also multiple sclerosis itself, not only for us who have it, but our family members and our friends and what have you. So a little shout out for the National MS Society. So let's talk about a timeline. And you see the picture off on the right-hand side. This was something I shared with you a little over a year ago, in the sense that when I had basically a situation where I was having this flare up, this second flare up, and I needed to go on Solumentrol for 5 days. Well, where did this start? It started back in 2011. I had my first demyelinating event back in January of 2011. I was out of work for 6 weeks. I was diagnosed with demyelination. I went through a battery of exams, whether they were MRIs or CAT scans or even a spinal tap. It came back with some sort of marker. Not right off the bat, 5th, 6th round out, showed a marker, but for the sake of getting a diagnosis that would be stuck with me for the rest of my life, and because it was just one event, we went with a demyelinating event diagnosis. And that was basically the diagnosis from that point forward as far as what happened in 2011. When I was going through various MRIs, it was even to the point where the neurologist I was working with in southeastern Connecticut said it might have been an isomatic stroke, but it was so small he could not tell what it was. So nevertheless, it was a demyelinating event, but to what degree, we don't specifically know. When we go to August of 2012, I moved from Connecticut to the Baltimore area for about a year and a half, doing a consulting gig, and I had a small flare-up. And I rushed over to Johns Hopkins, one of the leading hospitals in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic as far as multiple sclerosis and demyelination, and worked with an incredible doctor, Dr. Mowry of all people, an incredible neurologist, who went through my charts and everything and said, okay, we're going to put you on pill form of Solumentrol. I took a large bevy of Solumentrol in the course of 3 days. It was an incredible dosage. But that knocked that flare-up down. Didn't need to go on a drip as pictured on the far right, because that came into play 8-9 years later. We go to November of 2020, the desensitization returns. So when I say desensitization, in other words, numbness. So I touch the top of my head and it doesn't feel exactly there. There is a sort of blocking as far as me feeling anything on the upper side of my head, upper left-hand side of my head, and down the right-hand side of my body, torso down. That was a telltale sign that I was coming back. On New Year's Eve of 2020, I went to see my primary care physician, explained the symptomology to her. She said, you're going to the hospital. So I spent that day at Chester County Hospital to tackle what this is, which I had a good feeling I knew what this was. But I went through the ER for them to realize, okay, we need to give you a steroid to take this down. They gave me prednisone. Prednisone, which in the grand scheme of things, prednisone versus Solumentrol, very small. Doesn't do much as far as trying to knock down the inflammation of a flare-up. Go through January, go through February, and we realize that this is indeed multiple sclerosis. The MRI that I took in early January of 21 showed more lesions, bright lesions, which means they were active and running. And that's when not only my neurologist at UPenn came up with the diagnosis, but my PCP said, okay, well, this is it. This is the diagnosis. So I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in January of 21. I went through a 5-day Solumentrol drip because I was still going through that inflammation. Prednisone wasn't going to do much of anything. 5-day drip where, the wonderful people at University of Pennsylvania got someone to come over to the house. 5 days, Solumentrol, 1 gram a day, hence the picture on the far right. One of these days I'll get the pointing on a camera correct. Yeah, I was basically sitting down for 3 hours, 4 hours with a drip of Solumentrol for 5 consecutive days. It knocked it down. The next course of action was to go see the neurologist face-to-face, see exactly what was going on, and then start taking a course of action. The thought there was Ocrevus. The reason why Ocrevus we'll talk about in just a few minutes, but Ocrevus seemed to be the medication of choice for what seemed to be relapsing, remitting multiple sclerosis. And that began on March 31st of 21. Let me go back to Maine for a second because there were some comments as I was going through this. Over on YouTube, we have Nicole who says, "Hi, everyone." Hi, Nicole. Hope you're doing well. And Laura joining us on YouTube as well. She says, "Sorry, I'm late." Hey, all. Hey, Laura. Hope you're doing okay. And we got Des over in Australia on YouTube who says, "Good day, everyone." Good day to you, Des. We also have my aunt on Facebook who says, "Hi, John," who also says, "Love." And get that graphic up real quick. Love you too. And let's see. Jamie says, "Must have been a whirlwind of emotions to get that diagnosis, yet a relief to know what it is." Jamie, you're spot on. It was a big whirlwind of emotion. If I remember my mindset in December of 20, January of 21, February of 21, I was in a thought, well, what the heck's going on? And then I said, I know what this is going on. I went through this back in 2011. Just never got the full diagnosis. So the relief there is that we actually have a diagnosis for it. The relief there is that I am going on medication for it. The relief there is that I'm not going on one of the crab drugs for it. So we refer to crab drugs in the multiple sclerosis circles as Capaxin, Rebif, Avonex, Betasterin. What Ocrevus is not any of that. And you look at these drugs, and these are drugs that are taken daily, taken weekly, that have side effects. Ocrevus has not produced much in side effect as far as what I've gotten off of the 2 half infusions and the full infusion back in October. I will say, when I got the full infusion in October, it did knock me out for a few days because it is a large infusion done very quickly. But no side effects as far as I know. And all the MRIs that I've taken since haven't shown any new lesions. Now, there is a follow-up that I'm going to University of Pennsylvania for in the next couple weeks to go through a couple more tests, but nothing was proving to be a problem for sure. So that, of course, is a relief. Laura says 10 years to a diagnosis. Yes, by choice, because when you get a diagnosis of something like multiple sclerosis, well, there is no cure for multiple sclerosis. There is no remyelinating agent. So to get the diagnosis means that this is going to be a battle I will be battling for the rest of my life. But the fact that there is a diagnosis, the fact that there is a course of action for it is very important. I can't be remiss in, being fully cognizant of that. So that's my reality. What is this Ocrevus that we're talking about? We talked about Ocrevus before on the show, but it's a reminder. It's a medication that is taken semi-annually. It's a 4-hour infusion with 2 starter doses, and then it gets truncated down to about a 2.5-hour infusion at full dose when you're on a full dose infusion. They say that, hey, you can handle a 4-hour dose at half dose, a 4-hour infusion at half dose. We could speed it up to get you to the full dosage. So in this case, 700 milligrams versus 350. The first starter was given to me on March 31st. The second was on April 14th. The first full dose was given to me on October 14th, and the next scheduled dose, a full dose, is April 14th. Multiple sclerosis is caused by your immune system attacking the myelin sheath around the nerves in your brain. So we have all these nerves that are running through us in our brain, down our central nervous system. The covering around it is called myelin. So, it's the thing that withers away when you have multiple sclerosis. We also refer to other demyelinating disorders. When we talk about demyelination, that implies exactly that. The myelin sheath is withering away. What Ocrevus does is it targets the B cells because the B cells are energized by this sort of autoimmune disorder in that multiple sclerosis. There's MS development going on, and it's activating the immune system to turn against us, and then basically recruits the T cells to attack the neurons. It's a very vicious sort of cycle, but multiple sclerosis is an autoimmune disorder, autoimmune disease. So it's something we are dealing with when we have MS. And there are many different ways one can get MS. We haven't talked about that at great length, but I think tonight I definitely want to. So let's talk about that. And that the potential causes of MS is this. Four different causes. This is National MS Society. Thank you for this information. It could be either immunological, immune system. It could be environmental. It could be infectious. It could be genetic. As we go through this list, there are some facets that I've dealt with in my life. Okay? So as far as immunological, well, that's just the nature of the disorder. It's the T cells turning against the immune system. It's the B cells amplified by this, and the myelin sheath being attacked. That's why what Ocrevus does is it basically pulls off the CD20 marker of the B cells and realizes that that is a marker that is basically in play as far as the MS advancement through the central nervous system, through the brain. So that's the immune piece. As far as the environmental piece, here are things that really hit home. Obesity. I've been obese most of my life. So that's certainly one factor. Vitamin D, my vitamin D levels have never been the greatest. And then, as I mentioned on the show before, I used to be a cigar smoker. Geography, they see that areas that are not so temperate, that are, more colder, northeast, mid-Atlantic, favor it as well. So I definitely have 3 or 4 whammies in the environmental factor for sure. The next category is even more eye-opening, in that infectious. Well, measles, first and foremost. And I think the older you are when you get measles, it's more of a danger. Herpes, Epstein-Barr. Now, Epstein-Barr virus is definitely something that has been in the news lately because they are looking at what's been going on with the pandemic, what has been going on with COVID, and also a sort of sidecar as far as COVID development. And they've been talking about Epstein-Barr. What is interesting about that is the fact that Epstein-Barr ties to mononucleosis. I had mononucleosis my sophomore year in college. So now if you look at that list, geography, smoking, obesity, mono. Like now there's a little bit of, sort of a dossier here. And again, it's very hard to say that 1 or 2 or 3 of those things actually caused it, but these are potential causes. There are other things on there. Pneumonia, chlamydia-induced pneumonia is another thing that's in the infectious disease sort of bucket as far as potential causes of MS. The last one, genetic. They said 1 in about 750 to 1,000 with about 200 genes associated with risk factors. So there's a series of genes that are associated with multiple sclerosis development. And usually in those sort of situations, that's what kind of advances the story, but not necessarily fully. Again, these are all potential. They're not guaranteed that these are issues, for sure. Comment popped up as I was talking to this. Austin says he's currently learning about the brain and the nervous system, and multiple sclerosis was brought up. Yeah. And the funny thing about multiple sclerosis is that there's a lot more research that has been done, especially in the last 10 years, 10 to 15 years, as far as potential new treatments for multiple sclerosis, potential ways to perhaps create a remyelinating agent, to create a sort of thing that can basically produce or reproduce the myelin sheath that has withered away. There's a lot more research as far as stem cell therapy and other things. So is in the thought of many doctors, many neurologists, many neuroscientists that think that within the next 10 to 20 years, we may be talking about a cure for multiple sclerosis. What we have with Ocrevus is certainly something that helps people like me who have relapse remitting multiple sclerosis. What does that mean? Is the sense that I had one event and there was a second event that comes down as far as it flaring up again. It could be secondary primary multiple sclerosis, but I never got the SPMS diagnosis. Where for all intents and purposes, we're calling it relapse remitting for now. So it's definitely something where we're learning more and more over time. And I've sung his praises before, but I'm going to talk about it again. The folks over at University of Pennsylvania, over in neuroscience, also with the multiple sclerosis treatment center, as part of the Perelman Center, Cancer Infusion Center. Incredible neuroscientist, neurologist by name of Dr. Matthew Schindler. He has done incredible wonders with me, working with me and trying to get a better hand with treating this multiple sclerosis. So very thankful for the University of Pennsylvania, very thankful for Dr. Matthew Schindler for sure. A couple other questions pop up. Jamie says, how do you feel about neuroplasticity? It's definitely something that Dr. Schindler and I have talked about. There hasn't been any sort of thought yet of how that can basically be used to help me in my course of treatment, but it's something that has been discussed before. So definitely aware of it for sure. And Austin says, it's sad though that the cells don't go through mitosis and repair themselves. I wish they would. Yeah, there's a ton of people that agree with that as far as some sort of regeneration or auto-generation of a healthy behavior instead of something that is looking to just create more lesions and more miscommunication along the central nervous system, along the brain. And that's why multiple sclerosis affects people in so many ways, right? It's very dependent on where the lesions appear. In my case, it appears closer to my brain, my brainstem, in the sense that my handwriting's a bit off, in the sense that I may have brain fog, the sense that when I had the first set of demyelination back in 2011, I had optic freezing right around the optic center of the brain. So it's really affected by where those lesions are, because those lesions represent the areas where the myelin sheath has been withered. So it's very much not a one-size-fits-all disease. It affects people in so many ways. We've had 4 people on this show talk about their stories with multiple sclerosis, and it's affected all of them differently, right? Some people, it's a walk in the park. Some people have a hard time walking. Not to be crass like that, but it's true. For some people, it's neurological, basically cognitive. For some people, it's mobile. It's when they used to talk about a 20 to 30 year prognosis with an MS diagnosis. They used to say that there might be ambulatory nature at somewhere down the path. The good news is, within the last 10 to 15 years, with drugs like Ocrevus and other ways to treat MS, we don't talk about that much anymore. We talk about ways to live the best life we can. It's also the reason why my health is more important than ever before. I've been up and down in my weight 3 times. There is really no reason and no excuse for that to come back. There is too much at play here. It is MS. There's no question. It's MS. So if the weight should start to come back on and I creep back, which will never happen. It's not going to happen with me, for sure. But I run a major risk factor. So health is more important than ever before. And not to go down this road for a second, but let's. I do work out. I work out about an hour and a half to 2 hours a day. For me, it's an insurance policy. Now, there's some people that will debate you on this. Like, well, if you work out for more than 90 minutes, you're doing cardiovascular activity, you're going to be withering away muscle mass. And there's some truth to that. However, I know if I don't work out at all, I'm just going with the flow and not doing much of anything, I stand a chance of this becoming worse, OSERVIS or not. So working out is not only an insurance policy for me to keep the weight off, it's also an insurance policy not to have this flare up. So I had to go there for a second, without question. Jamie says potential to create new neural pathways that may have been lost from MS or slowed down. I might do some research on that. Jamie, if you can, that'd be great. Please share it with us, because every ounce of information that we get, every ounce of information that we talk to on this program and other programs is very important. So Jamie, I muchly appreciate that. Thank you. Speaking of studies, speaking of the whole process with that, I've been going for MRIs, not just any MRIs. I've been going for MRIs in a 7 Tesla machine, which is a very, very powerful MRI. So powerful that you don't need to have contrast infused in you. You go straight in. It is a very powerful magnet. You feel a little disoriented on the way in, and you definitely feel a lot more disoriented on the way out. It's that severe of a disorientation. I've always talked to the lab techs there and I say, am I upside down? And they inform me, no, you're not upside down. The table's flat when it's going in. You're not being twisted upside down and whatnot. Although you feel like you are. Truth be told, you really feel like you are. And then I would say that the October experience was very interesting, because that was a day that not only did I go for my 7T MRI, but I also went for my full dose of OSERVIS. So I was definitely in a double whammy for sure. The baseline was done January 26th, 3 months April 27th, 6 months July 6th, 9 months October 14th, full year on February 1st, but there was another follow-up on March 15th. Nothing to be concerned about. I think it's more just do a true contrast and compare from the baseline to now. All of this being done at the Perelman Center over at the University of Pennsylvania. I'm very fortunate for these MRIs, very fortunate to be part of this study, because it really is a very crisp image of what's going on in the brain and also in my central nervous system. So to be part of that study has been absolutely important for me, and much thanks to the folks at University of Pennsylvania to get me in that study for sure. A couple comments popped up. Nicole says there is a neuroscientist on YouTube who did an episode on neuroplasticity and our ability to learn. His name is Andrew Huberman. Yes. Yeah. I've been doing a little bit of research too. He's definitely one person I've been seeing, but there's a lot of good information out there for sure. Thank you for sharing it, Nicole. And we got Sammy joining us on YouTube tonight, who says, hey, JV. Hey, Sammy, how are you? Hope you're doing well. As I go the wrong way with this. Okay, so a bit of a reminder about what multiple sclerosis is, and I'll fly through this really quickly. What you have on the right-hand side, and this is stuff we've shared on the program before, it's basically a schematic of what the nerve looks like, or a really good animation, or a really good drawing of what the nerve looks like. But then when you have the myelin sheath withering away, it looks like what you have in the lower right-hand corner. And you have this neural system of these, basically this sort of connection between your central nervous system, your brain, with the nucleus. But you have other things like dendrites in the myelin sheath and synapses that form, and basically your communication center between cells within the nervous system. Excuse me, sorry about that. But that's basically what demyelination looks like. It's just something where to have our bodies turn against us in the most essential and integral portion of our function, wherever the lesions are, is scary. I think about that from time to time, but I also know that we have a mindset that, whatever function we have to use. The brain is not working great with memory right now, as far as muscle memory, as far as cognitive memory, etc. It's really, and this has definitely been stressed to me by a few neurologists. It's a use it or lose it sort of game, in the sense that if you have the ability to walk, you have the ability to run, you have the ability to do whatever, hone in on it, build it. Because the more you do that now, the better you are in keeping that. The moment we don't hone in on this sort of thing is the more likely that we lose it. Because, vis or not, I have MS. Vis or not, over 1 million people in this country have MS. It's basically a walking order we all have. So that's just reality. MS is basically, and we talked about this before, but touch problems, which is exactly the sort of problems that I had when I first learned about my demyelination. Numbness on the top of my head, numbness down the right-hand side of my body, etc. Also, eyeball freezing, or it's what we refer to as optic neuritis. So if I can't focus on my finger going left and right, it's just my eyeballs freezing. It's funny, they say optic neuritis, and some people would insinuate that there is pain associated with the optic neuritis. Not so much, just lots of freezing. I think the other pain was from the numbness, but also a headache, a general headache feeling as well. So the inflammation was definitely all around the vision center of my brain, but also the feeling of the top of my head and down the right-hand side of my body as the nerves twist. Did I have any bladder or bowel problems? Fortunately not. Depression, slurred speech, depression a little bit, but there's a lot of things going on. It could be that too. Slurred speech, not so much. But these are things we have to be cognizant of when we have an MS diagnosis. It's truly dependent on where the lesions pop up. Jamie says, I've seen nerves in my cadaver lab, cranial nerves, spinal nerves, etc. The biggest one, I believe, was the sciatic nerve, which people often get pinched by muscles in their backside. So yeah, that's why I always joke about me getting the snap, crackle, pop on Mondays. The importance of chiropractors. They are very important. To have our bodies adjusted to make sure that, not only our necks are in the right place, but also how our back aligns is very important. There's usually a stigma related to the chiropractic arts, the chiropractic sciences, try saying that 5 times fast. It is very much a necessity. And not outside of the fact that I used to be a very big guy, but also outside of the fact that I have a lot of things going on with my brain, my central nervous system, and I want to make sure that I have my nerves and my body in the right sort of place as far as the muscular structure. Chiropractors are very important with respect to that. And sometimes, truth be told, we really have to think about this holistically, don't we? Not so much that I'm going to a truly vegan diet or whatnot, but we have to look at exactly what we put in our bodies. I used to eat a lot more dairy than I used to. And I know withering away on the dairy has significantly helped me. Outside of the fact that sinuses, of course. But we have to be better consumers of what we consume. Better consumers of what. We definitely have to keep an eye on that. Outside of the fact that, with me, the obesity question, but to have a better understanding of what we put in ourselves is very important, especially when we deal with something like multiple sclerosis, for sure. Jamie says she believes in the holistic treatment. Yeah, agreed. When I first got diagnosed with MS, wow, someone bought me 20 coffees. Whoever bought me 20 coffees, thank you very much. I am a big lover of caffeine. Thank you for giving me 20 coffees this evening. I muchly appreciate it. I don't know how I'm going to go to bed now, but I'm kidding. Thank you for your support, without question. Um, I would say that back in 2011, when I was dealing with demyelination, it was it was the sort of thing where I was trying to do a lot of research, and we always fear about, well, we're all trying to be doctors now, we're using WebMD or whatnot, but there's a lot of good information out there. I learned about stuff like the swank diet, which was an elimination diet to remove a lot of the meats and other things from our diet and go back to basics. That definitely helped me when I was dealing with this demyelination the first 5, 6 weeks back in 2011. So, not to say that everybody needs to go on that sort of elimination diet or that sort of swank diet, but it helps without question. You talk about a lot of folks that are producing content that talk about exactly the goodness of certain foods that we eat. The simpler the meal, simpler the food, the better off we are. Um, Definitely. There's great books out there we've talked about before. Eat to Beat Disease is one of them, right? So it's just stuff that we definitely can do a lot more research on, and I'm just keep on learning. That's the best thing we could do. Laura says sorry. Laura says, "Good job, JV. You have made so much life change." Thank you, Laura. I appreciate that. Austin says, "Someone." Well, whoever that someone is, thank you. Thank you very much. And Jamie says, "Wow, thanks for the coffee's tipper. Thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate that. Appreciate all of you. I very much appreciate this community that we've built, but I definitely do love all of you. Thank you." I have one more schematic over here about how the skull and the partial lobe. These are all suspectal places that we may develop lesions when we have multiple sclerosis. So you could see that wherever your lesions are, it could affect certain things about our function. We're talking about our temporal lobe, we're talking about our speech, we're talking about our behavior, we're talking about memory. When we talk about our frontal lobe, we're talking about movement, intelligence, reasoning, behavior. When we talk about the parietal lobe, it's intelligence, reasoning, telling our right from our left, basically orientation. Then there's the lobe related to vision, which definitely had a small little bit of flare-up in the sense that I had the optic freezing, the optic neuritis. The cerebellum as far as balance and coordination. And then the brainstem. Brainstem being a very pivotal problem in the sense that if there are lesions there, then that's our breathing, that's our blood pressure, that's our heartbeat, that's our swallowing. When people are very sick with multiple sclerosis and are ambulatory, more times than not, there are situations with lesions in the brainstem. And it's something where our doctors and our neurologists or whatnot have to be on top of that sort of thing. When we have optic neuritis, it's basically a sense where our eyes are not centering function. So a car that looks like the car on the right looks like a very blurry mess on the left. Very scary if you're driving in the middle of the night and you're dealing with neuritis. It pretty much tells you can't drive. Fortunately, I'm not suffering with that right now. And it's something that I keep a constant awareness of without question. But that's what optic neuritis is. Again, some people are associating optic neuritis with pain. It could be. In my case, there wasn't. And then here's just another sort of schematic or another diagram or another drawing of what the sort of analogy of the myelin sheath is to our nerves. That there are over 150 billion neurons in the central nervous system. And when someone has MS, they have basically the direct impact of the 150 billion neurons being randomly attacked by the immune system, something that is supposed to be there to protect us. It's not protecting us. We have an autoimmune disorder. That's what that is. This is a good one too. Have you ever got a cut on your arm, on your leg, and it turned into a scab? You kept pecking at it and it got bigger and bigger and eventually turned into a scar? That's what goes on in our brains with our spinal cords. Our immune system is constantly pecking at them, and the lesions are those scars that are being bigger and bigger and bigger. And more times than not, we can't see it, but we can feel it. which is really funny because you talk about people have multiple sclerosis. A lot of people tell us, hey, you don't look like you have MS. You look perfectly healthy. Well, there are days where I don't. There are days where I do have brain fog. There are days where I don't feel 100%. And that's what we deal with. And that has been a common point that a lot of the people that have come on my show to talk about multiple sclerosis has definitely dealt with. Austin, thank you. Thank you for the wonderful gift of coffee. You're an incredible guy, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate you. Thank you. That was really sweet, man. Actually, let me go back to Maine for a second. I am definitely blessed for this community. I can't get over how great this group is. This has been a project that has been more cathartic than anything that I could ever imagine. But to tell my story and to tell exactly what's been going on has been very much important for me, and for all of you to constantly be there for me and constantly be there to contribute information and whatnot and to support. I'm very, very thankful for all of you. Now you're called out. Austin says I told it to be anonymous. Said, oh, Austin, thank you, man. I appreciate it. And Jamie says we are blessed to have you, JV. Thank you. Jamie also says that's what's hard about illness and disabilities. People think if it's not physically visible, it's not real, or they play down or they downplay your struggles. The struggles are real. They're very much real. If we go back to New Year's Eve in November of 20, I was at a point in time where I wasn't feeling myself, and I was just not feeling 100%. Had the desensitization, top of my head, down my right hand side of my body. I was looking at different ways of treating it. Like, there was part of me that said, well, let me look at CBD, and CBD helped a little bit, but it didn't help as far as, going to a neurologist or going to a primary care physician. I mean, it's something you can't see, but we definitely feel. It's spot on for sure. One more thing I guess I can show, which I've shown you pictures of my MRIs or whatnot. This is more of a generic, in the sense that on the left-hand side is a healthy brain. The right-hand side is what a brain with lesions or plaques look like with MS. It's a mess. It's also, as you could tell, how this, the neurologist from Southeastern Connecticut would be confused. It does look a little bit like someone who may have gone through an isomatic stroke, because there is that loss of sort of activity in certain portions of the brain. The only way to truly figure out what exactly happened, spinal tap, MRI, that sort of thing. But yeah, it's very scary to see that. And even now, when I go for the 17 MRIs, there's still those little pieces of those lesions that are there in my brain and my central nervous system. I'll go back to Maine for a second. One other thing, I guess, and this is going to be more of a really good schematic to look at, but again, this goes back to what that sort of breakdown between the nerve and the brain and the certain portions of our body that are supposed to be communicating, what that looks like. It's truly something to be fully cognizant of. And as I mentioned today, today is National Multiple Sclerosis Awareness Day, and that of March 3rd. So that's why we're covering this today. Couple other things before we look at final comments and whatnot. In the sense that I should show this too, as far as MS fatigue, it's like having the flu and your body craves sleep to heal. There are definitely times where I deal with that. But I think with everything else that's gone on, and yes, I had COVID as well. There are many ways we can end up with a sort of fatigue that causes us to want to nap to heal. It's just something that we deal with. But when you have multiple sclerosis, it's definitely something we are very much aware of. And it's something where more times than not, there is a little piece of me that's not feeling 100%. Even days where I lift things up and put them down, or I go running or whatnot. It's not completely perfect, to say the least. So I have a point I wanted to raise. The MS walk, let me go back to this graphic again. The multiple sclerosis walk, the Walk MS Media 2022, is on April 23rd at 10 a.m. It is going to be a 3-mile walk that we're doing in person, everybody together. Last year was virtual. I did it last year in Stroud Preserve over in Westchester. This year we are all together in Media. And we are raising money for the National MS Society and for Walk MS Media 2022 at rebrand.ly/adventure to a cure. It's a great organization. It's a great event. I am looking forward to joining people in person to walk 3 miles for such an incredible cause. Again, rebrand.ly/adventure to a cure. And if you want to learn more about multiple sclerosis, you can go to their website, nationalmssociety.org, or give them a call at 1-800-344-4867. Again, 1-800-344-4867. But then it gets me to this point. If I can walk 3 miles, can I walk 3 miles? That is not the question. The question is, can I run 13.1 miles at the end of this month? March 27th, namely. And we're going to talk about why I'm running and what has caused this and how I am going to finish a 13.1 mile race, a half marathon, on March 27th down in Cary, North Carolina. We will talk about that on our next episode, Tuesday night at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific, here on the Venture Forward. But let's also share today's language of letting go, because I think this one is very much apropos, for sure. Accepting ourselves. This language of letting go, by the way, Melly Beatty, great book. Definitely recommend. The journal with entries every day. If you want to learn more about how the mind should be, and if we have problems with codependency and co-addiction, it's definitely a great read. I definitely recommend it for sure. And the website for the entries are down the bottom at the Hazelden website, hazeldenbettyford.org. Today's language of letting go, accepting ourselves. While driving one day, a woman's attention focused on the license plate of the car ahead. The license read BHOUR. How can I? What does that say? Oh, be who you are, she thought. I don't know who I am. Some of us may have felt confused when people encouraged us to be ourselves. How can we know ourselves or be who we are when for years many of us submerged ourselves in the needs of others? We do have a self. We're discovering more about ourselves daily. We're learning we're deserving of love. We're learning to accept ourselves as we are for the present moment, to accept our feelings, thoughts, flaws, wants, needs, and desires. If our thoughts or feelings are confused, we accept that too. To be who we are means we accept our past, our history, exactly as is. To be ourselves means we are entitled to our opinions and beliefs for the present moment, and subject to change. We accept our limitations and our strengths. To be who we are means we accept our physical selves, as well as our mental, emotional, and spiritual selves for now. Being who we are in recovery means we take that acceptance one step further. We can appreciate our history and ourselves. Being whom we are, loving and accepting ourselves, is not a limiting attitude. Far from it. Accepting and loving ourselves is how we enable growth and change. Today, I will be who I am. If I'm not yet certain who I am, I will affirm that I have a right to that exciting discovery. And that is today's language of letting go. Some final comments. Laura says, blessing and a blessing to us too. Blessed and a blessing to us too. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Austin quoting one of my favorite songs. As Shinedown said, my monsters are real. And there are many ways to perceive that line, but I take it as my struggles are real. That's how I take it too. Spot on there, Austin. And Jamie says, I love Shinedown. Seen them live 3 times. Great band. Fantastic band. It's 3 more times than I have. I would love to see Shinedown in concert. Jamie says, I know you can do it, JV. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I appreciate you big time. Austin says, you've got this. You are a powerhouse, and I believe in you with 3 green hearts. Austin, love you, man. Thank you. And Laura says, I'm going to share this on Facebook for National MS Awareness Day. Thank you, Laura. I appreciate that. I appreciate you, and I appreciate all of you. So, what are we doing tomorrow? We're doing what we do best on Fridays. We have a conversation about anything and everything at 6:30 Eastern, 3:30 Pacific in the enigma known as VF Talks with Matt Haas, with Paul Burke, and with all of you. It is the best moment of the week. I love doing the show. I love having all of you there just to talk about anything. It's a great time. On Tuesday, we talk about me and running. Why running? Why now? Why not? And that episode will be Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. VF Talks is tomorrow night, 6:30 Eastern, 3:30 Pacific. But until then, I'm going to say the same thing I say at the end of every Venture Forward in VF Talks. Stay safe. Stay sane. Stay strong. Stay sober. You're worth it. Have a wonderful night. We'll see you tomorrow night for VF Talks at 6:30 Eastern, 3:30 Pacific, right here on the Venture Forward. Have a wonderful night. I love you. Fly be free.